Welcome to the Festivus / Christmas edition of the show with no name and the first day of the rest of the world.
That's right. That's right. The world did not end.
As far as I can tell.
No. Amsterdam is still going.
However, this was Sartre. This would be, maybe this would be hell, just perpetually watching the show with no name.
Oh, I think that'd be heaven.
See? It's all a matter of perspective. There's got to be a pony in there someplace. Right?
Absolutely. And today is the winter solstice as well.
It's
the shortest day of the year, but we are not going to be the shortest program of the year.
It might be.
Oh.
You never can tell.
That wouldn't be very festive.
You never can tell. Let's see, what was it? Let's see. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. That would be tonight, right?
That'd be tonight.
Or maybe last night, I don't know. You know the rest. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds, the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. Are we expecting some downy flakes later today?
Not today, but we may get some flakes.
What does our weatherman Rich Owanski say?
Well, we supposed to get some more of this.
Yeah, rain.
Yeah,
seems not particularly cool either.
It's kind of nippy out there now, but they're supposed to get a few flakes perhaps on Christmas Eve for Christmas Day.
Oh, that would be nice. It'd be just like that movie. What was the name of that movie?
Holiday Inn?
No, it was White Christmas, where it snowed just in time and saved the day.
Oh.
Yeah,
well,
you were close though.
I was close. I was close. Yeah.
Well, let's see. I made some notes. By the way, you want to wear your hat? We can do this if you want. We can be really festive. Yeah. Okay. Sad news I received yesterday that my old friend Richard Bartizel has passed away.
I read the obituary in the paper this morning.
Huh?
I read the obit in the paper this morning.
I didn't get a chance to read the paper yet. We got to set out for Cy, so I don't interfere with it till he's done.
It said in the paper that he served with the British during World War II, and in there it said he received the Medal of Honor. Okay, now I'm not sure if it meant I don't think it meant Congressional Medal of Honor. It would have said that, but I think it had something to do with his service with the Brits.
Yeah. He was a heck of a guy, let me tell you. We were friends for a long time. Of course, his son Chris was in my class, and Billy was a few years older than me. And Margaret seemed like a lot of years younger. And if you're watching Margaret, you're a lot of years younger. But I worked with him for years at the radio station.
He had the Polish hour.
Oh, and the polka party every day. I would fill in for him. Regularly, I would do the polka party on Saturday night because he had been working 7 days a week. The half-hour polka party every day, and then the Polish hour on Sunday morning. Boy, stacja radiowa WCSS 1490 w Amsterdam, New York. Viva Genesee.
That's right, Genesee beer. They used to have the place down in Forest Ave before they moved up by Maney's Corners.
But just the most likable guy you'd ever want to meet. He was gregarious, just fun to be around. And he knew radio inside and out. And us younger guys he looked after. I think he got along better with the younger guys than he did with the older guys, frankly. And it's hi, Anna, do you want to be on the show? Whoa! Okay, we're back after a brief interruption after Chippy the Wonder Dog was a bad dog. Now he's going to come over and tell us he's sorry. Okay, that's a good dog. All right, Grandpa loves you. Oh, he did terrible. He's very thirsty today because he got into his grandma made all kinds of presents for her friends that had some kind of a food base to them, and somehow he found them during the night. And, so now he's apologizing, but his stomach is really bad. Not to mention he's probably had more sugar than he's ever had in his life. Okay. Chippy the Wonder Dog, the official dog of the show with no name. I don't know, is he on camera or not? Not quite,
No.
is he? All right. He's right here on my lap. Okay, here, get your head. Yeah, that's good. All right. Anyway, all right, go sit down, but don't trip on anything. Take your friend with you, that's it. Okay. Whoa, 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 okay.
Good job.
So what happened there, Anna came in and Chippy the Wonder Dog went to greet his mistress and boom, over went the camera. Because, well, we're at Casa Bob at the festive fireplace here. The stockings are hung by the chimney with care, as you can see.
We hope somebody will be there.
Well, I hope at least somebody for every stocking. Of course, and then we got the other stockings on the piano across the way for the.
You need a bigger fireplace.
They didn't come much bigger than this fireplace, unless it's the one Citizen Kane had.
You take the door off so he can get through Christmas Eve.
Oh yeah. That's you probably that's a little off camera. This is actually was designed as a coal fireplace. It had a coal grate, and what you would do is you'd pile up the coal in there, get the fire going, and this front piece either comes off or if you want it to, or stays in place. Depending on how hot you want it to be, and then you can adjust the airflow to make it burn hotter or colder. Of course, by the time we moved here, it was past the coal era, and I remember talking to Larry Marini about it. I said, hey, he said, well, I might be able to get you a bag of coal or something like that. But anyway, we never did it, never tried it. So we use it as a real fireplace, and usually only like on Christmas Eve.
I hope it goes out by late Christmas. We'll get my hot foot coming down.
Yeah, but he's a jolly old elf. And we got 3 chimneys, by the way, so we got 3 fireplaces.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize
yeah,
that.
there's one in the room behind it, and there's one in the master bedroom upstairs. 4 flues, actually. 4 flues on this chimney, and 1 is for the furnace. And
speaking of jolly old elf, did you see that someone rewrote? Wrote that, and they took out the pipe.
Oh yes.
It's not good to be smoking.
That's right. Santa should not be smoking.
In a pipe. Yeah.
Lord only knows. Remember. Was it Rosie O'Donnell's show? I forget, but it was when Annie Get Your Gun was playing in New York, and I don't know whether it's Reba McEntire or whoever was playing the part at the time was coming on the show, and she wouldn't let her bring the rifle. I said, I wonder what the. That's right. I said, I wonder how she's going to announce the name of the show.
Get your bow and arrow or what?
Anyway, we were talking about Richard Bartezel before, so. Wow, his wife Molly was a great lady. She was from Scotland.
Yes, she was.
And she spoke like she was from Scotland.
She had a brogue.
And I guess Richard must have been stationed in Scotland. That's where he met her. My father was stationed in Scotland as well.
I saw that picture.
Oh yeah, the one from Glasgow.
Yeah, Scots take great pictures. Yes, they do.
It's funny that I have 2 pictures, 2 portraits of him from the war. The first one was early on, and he's got his white sailor cap on. Mm-hmm. He looks so much younger. And the earliest it could have been was late 1942, and this is mid 1944. Not even, and it's not that he had aged, but he had matured so much in that year and a half in the service.
Yeah.
Just amazing. And when you think about how these guys grew up so fast at such a young age, holy moly.
Yeah, they had to.
One time I was talking with Richard, and he told me how he had gotten, or Molly had gotten, a tape recording from her brother in Scotland. Mm-hmm. And it arrived here. She had not, I don't think she had been back since the war, and she had not heard her brother's voice in those many years. It had to be in the early 70s. And they get the tape, they put it on the tape recorder, and it's backwards. Apparently the reels went in the opposite direction.
Well, they drive on the wrong side of the road.
The reels went in the opposite direction. And he says, I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, I have got the solution for you. I had purchased Sister Anna Roberta's old 4-track tape recorder.
Yeah.
And the way it worked is the one track went this way, one track went this way, one track went this way, and one track went this way. So if you were playing it in higher quality, you would use 2 tracks each way, okay? And so you could throw a switch to play it in reverse. In other words, if it was a 2-track recording, you could throw a switch and it would be playing backwards on the track that you had switched to. So I brought my tape recorder up to the house, and Richard, being the electronic wizard that he was able to plug 2 cables into his tape recorder, and we sat down and listened to it, and the tears ran down her face as she heard her brother's voice. It was really, really special, really special. And as a result of that, every time I ran for public office thereafter, there was a campaign contribution from Richard Bartizel, no matter what it was. God bless him.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to.
I have not seen him in years. I don't know whether he's been in Florida or up here or.
He did spend a lot of time in Florida.
There was a. I don't know if you remember the St. Mary's Church organ. Well, of course you would remember. It's still there.
Yes.
But for a number of years, it did not function.
Mm-hmm.
It had finally broken down, and they were using this rather not up to that class, almost portable organ in its place for all that time. And I think they had that up front, and the choir was singing from the sanctuary, and if I recall correctly. Anyway, Richard finally says to Monsignor Glavin, get that organ fixed, whatever it costs, I'll pay for it. And they got it fixed. And the price kept going up and up, and there was nothing they didn't do to fix it. They took every pipe down. I remember somebody telling me that the dirt inside the pipes from 100 years of accumulation was fantastic. And they cleaned everything up, and they rebuilt the console to ended up in 6 figures.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But there aren't many of those pipe organs left around.
Yeah.
So I'm sure everything they had to repair it with had to be handcrafted specifically for that.
Yeah, it probably was. Yeah. Yeah.
You know? But it sounds great. We were down there.
Oh my God!
We did a funeral a couple months ago down there, and he played. We were in the choir loft while the organs played their part before Misha played the pipes, and it was just, you could just.
Oh yeah,
you could feel it.
I don't even know how many voices it's got. It's incredible. Plus you got the chimes built into it.
Yep.
The chimes used to be before. Well, in the old, when they first went in, the chimes were installed by my great uncle Will Going, my great uncle, great granduncle Will Going, who was the inventor who invented the machine that made the mother of pearl buttons, made Harvey Chalmers a fortune, and of course Uncle Will died broke, but. And I'm an actual heir at law to him as well. If it was ever worth anything, I'd own a very, very, very small piece of it. Anyway, it used to be operated by hand, but where you would go.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You would pull these levers, and he had it all worked out. Yeah, that was Uncle Will. So if you ever hear St. Mary's organ, you have Richard Bartizel to thank for that. Yeah. Some other great stories I have about him I can't tell on the air, but I'll tell you afterwards. Yeah. But oh my God, how many years was he on? I mean, it was I think he came on almost from the beginning of the radio
I think
station from the 40s.
I think he was.
The station went on the air in 48, and I think he was there then until,
Well, you had
well into the 70s, if not the 80s.
They had a large Polish population, and it got. I think at one time it had the highest ratings of any show they had on the
I'm
station.
sure. I'm sure.
Because people just they'd call up and he'd talk to them, and it was just it was great.
You know, it was a nice thing about doing his show on Saturday night. And occasionally I did it for him on Sunday morning if he couldn't be there. But people would write in and say, "Would you wish a stolot to, Babci so-and-so?"
Yeah.
And the Polish people, being the good people they are, would always enclose $1 or $2, and that would go to the announcer. So, yeah.
I think he probably did quite well because they did it all the time, and it was, that was truly a community radio station. It was,
absolutely.
So much of what went on in Amsterdam centered around that station. I mean, they covered all the basketball games,
right.
For the high school and for St. Mary's and then Scully, and you had so many of the kids through the community work up there to help out and everything, and it was, and they were a well-known commodity, the folks who ran and worked in the station.
Right.
Right. They were
the personalities.
The personality, yes, the personalities right. that were up there, and the fact that there weren't 1,000 means of out there to, on the TV and the radio. So, you couldn't get to them. I mean, you got
right.
WCSS.
Right.
Later on you maybe get TRY, you get PTR for the young folks, but that was it. You wanted information to get out. You
right.
gave it to CSS.
Right.
They had
they had like a 70% rating back in those days.
I wouldn't doubt
it. And that's of the people who had the radio stations on, and everybody had the radios on in those days. It started an interesting concept when they started the radio station. I think Art Carter started it, didn't he? Wasn't he the first president? I kind of think so. Anyway, that was last week's show. But what they did was they sold small numbers of shares of the station to all the merchants downtown. In other words, Lumarts and the community farmers and whatever. As a result, they felt a connection to the radio station, and they became their advertisers. Mm-hmm. And there was no shortage of advertisers. Every insurance company, every you name it.
Yeah, they had a few commercial breaks.
Yeah. And it was great stuff because you would have Bill Pope with his 10-minute ad-lib commercials. I was walking down Main Street the other day, and I stopped in a community pharmacy, and I said, Stan, what's new? What's new? I said, oh, Bill, he says, we just got this shipment of perfume we're selling cheap, Bellissima. Oh, gee. So you pay for a 30-second spot and you get 10 minutes. But that was the folksy.
Yeah, it wasn't scripted.
Right. There was a script, but Bill was nearly blind, and it really hurt him, even with the large type. It hurt him to read the script. And when I was learning the business, in other words, before I had my own show, I'd go up there and I'd sit with Bill, and he confused the heck. I thought this was the most difficult thing because he was doing things with the knobs that nobody else did. All you had to do is throw the switch, you're on, you're off. But he would be potting up, potting down, blah, 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 blah. And it turned out all he was doing was just a nervous habit. Anyway, he would turn to me and say, "Son," he says, "get out the Mortans commercial." So I'd reach in the file and pull out. He says, "Tell me what's in it." So I'd read it to him. He said, "Okay, put it back." And put it back, and then he'd take it from there.
And I think because they did that, it really gave it a familial relationship to the community.
Sure.
You felt, you're sitting there in your living room talking to your neighbor, you're talking to your friend, and he's talking to you.
Right.
And unlike today where it is, it's all very scripted and planned out, and it's lost that feel. But everything's like that, so I guess it's a sign of times. But back then, it was just everybody listened to it. And I can remember
A lot of it. A lot of it you can attribute to Phil Spencer, who came in the mid '50s or toward the end of the '50s, and created a lot of that ambiance. The quickie quiz, the Miller's Minute Mystery, all that stuff. Hey, two passes to the Triumph Theater. I never paid for a movie through my entire childhood.
Well, they did have all those things there. Go down to Mortan's. Make sure you get your Mortan bucks. So
Mortan bucks, yeah. And Lurie's stamps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they, and the downtown was involved. It was a much more a community thing than the stations are today. I know Cudmore does his shtick, and Mike and Sam do theirs, but it's.
But it's not all day long. And
no, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you used to have, Dave Downing was the newsman. I think he did a little bit of morning show. John Hurst and Lloyd Smith came along and then stayed. I worked with a lot of good guys. And then the night show went through some phases. They did a town and country show for a while. Bob Kinham did that. I used to love filling in for that because I went all out. This is Country Bob. Developed my own persona. Nobody was listening. I'd play Gene Autry records.
Hey. He's got one of the most famous Christmas songs there is, Gene Autry.
That's right.
Rudolph.
I mean, he was like it. You look back now and nobody's with Gene Autry. Well, Gene Autry was like the biggest thing going in the 30s and the 40s. Yeah. And then in the 50s, he reprised it all with his TV show.
Sure.
I love that show, Melody Ranch.
He had Roy and the Sons of the Pioneers.
That was with Roy Rogers. Roy Rogers had the Sons of the Pioneers. Yeah. It seemed like a nice guy.
Yeah. Geez, he had a lot of his kids were adopted, Royce.
Yeah.
He adopted a lot of kids. Him and Dale.
Yeah.
No, it was different, but it was a real community station.
Yeah.
Every place you went, you go down to downtown Merchants, and you see a little placard in the corner of the window, WCSS 1490,
right.
You couldn't get away from it. And he lived right up the street from us. We lived up on Fairmount Ave, up here on the Heights, and they lived about 5 houses up on the left from us. Phil and Joe Spalletta.
The Spallettas.
Yes.
One of my Phil was always had his finger in politics, but he would separate his
beliefs,
his personalities. Yeah. There's Phil Spencer, the radio personality, and there's Phil Spalletta, the behind-the-scenes political guy. He was very active in getting Mark Breyer to run for mayor in 1963, and I think Betts as well when John Betts ran.
Yeah.
I think so. In any event, he very much. He would always talk about the Breyer campaign as though it was the turning point in Western civilization. Anyway, got to the point where he got involved himself, and he eventually became supervisor of the town of Amsterdam for several terms, and a very good one. But I'll never forget listening to the news one day, and it was about some kind of public hearing in the town of Amsterdam. This was before he was supervisor. Mm-hmm. And he's doing the story as the reporter, right? It's Phil Spencer reporting. And they used to have, what did they call those? Actualities. There was audio clips from the event in their news stories. Yeah. And then Gavin Murdoch got up to speak. I don't know what to say. Tom Perillo quickly counterpointed. stuff like that. So anyway, so there's this news story. He's covering this Town of Amsterdam public hearing. This is Phil Spencer reporting. Town of Amsterdam meeting, blah, 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 and public citizen Philip Spalletta got up to speak, and then there's like 3 minutes of Phil himself in the same voice, as though he's a completely different person.
Yeah.
Oh well. He used to have lunch at the what was then the Maxwell House, where Emmy Lou's is today, and was Tullio's in between.
Yeah.
Did Tullio run the Maxwell House, or was there somebody else before
I think
Tullio?
it was somebody else.
I don't know. It's hard to tell because I know they had to change the name because the coffee people cracked down on them. It made them change the name.
That was important.
Like they were really.
Yeah.
They're really cutting into the. Well, of course, they were probably serving Folgers. I don't know, but.
Folgers freeze-dried coffee.
Freeze-dried. Nobody knew the difference. Anyway, so my father and Phil and Mike Riccio and a few other young Dick Healy, young cub reporter of the Union Star, Dick Healy.
The Union Star.
Yeah. They used to get together for lunch, and that lunch table, eventually moves over to the Topaz, and then it moves over to the Holiday Inn, and it ended up at Paul's Kitchen. But that lunch table kept going for like 40 years, seriously, in one form or another. So that, I eventually took my father's place at the table.
Did you?
Yeah. For many years, I probably 3 or 4 times a week for about 15 years straight. I would have lunch with the guys. It was a lot of fun, and nobody agreed with each other on anything. I mean, it contained the entire political spectrum there. You had your I'd vote for a chicken if he was a Democrat, John Kaczynski. Bob Brisky was pretty much I'd vote for a chicken if he was a Republican. You had Bob Mannion, who was a little more conservative. Ray Cinda, who was very conservative. You had Mike Rayfield, who was the young liberal anti-war activist. You had my good friend Dick Insonia, who was somewhat to the left of Mao Zedong. They were getting arguments over whether Taiwan had the right to call themselves China or not. Absolutely not. They have no right to call themselves China. No right. Stuff like that. So this would have like every day they have the same arguments and tell the same jokes. You can disappear for 6 years and come back and somebody tell the same joke. Yeah. That'd be just as funny the second time around, or the third, or the fifth. Vince Vicinanzo. But I mean, it was. They didn't necessarily sit in spectrum order, but cover it. And then there was another table of the, a little more higher plane guys like Bill Stewart and Ralph Krollbaum when he was still alive, and like that, and Carl Salmon. They would sit at that table. But eventually, as people died off, the tables merged, and Stewart started sitting with us. He was a funny guy. He was. He had a real dry wit, and he didn't say much when he did. It was, it was great. But those were the days.
Where's the happening lunch spot in Amsterdam now? Don't we have one?
There isn't one really. Eventually, Mike Riccio was the only one left at the table. Everybody died off. Phil, Vince, Bernie Welch used to come. There was a funny guy, let me tell you. Bernie Sr., well, Bernie Jr. too, but Bernie Sr., oh my God. He had no shortage of great stories, and he could tell the same one 20 times in a row, and it would still be hilarious. Oh my God. Bob Seiss used to come down when he was in town. Speaking of the radio, here's a guy who was the children's court judge of Montgomery County, who was the greatest sports announcer at the same time. He used to do those basketball games, and boy,
you knew what was going on listening.
The excitement that he would put it on. He shoots, he scores.
Yeah.
Follow away jumper. I've got a couple of his recordings upstairs.
Really?
Yeah, that I made. I think I was probably a junior, and I had to work the board at the radio station instead of being at the game, which is where I wanted to be. But as a result, I taped the shows, and I may have the only recordings of Bob Seiss doing basketball games, they were. God, he was fantastic.
Yeah, he'd be.
You know how I got my start in radio?
How'd you get your start in radio?
Well, of course, it didn't hurt that my father had lunch with Phil Spencer every day. But back when St. Mary's used to have play their games at the Armory, they had a coat room. Just as you get in the door, it was on your left as you go in.
Yeah.
And the coat room consisted of long pieces of very cheap cardboard that came in rolls, and we would roll that out, cut it, tape it to the floor, and we would throw people's coats essentially on the floor. And nobody got hung out, and everybody got a number, and you put the number on it. And my father used to run that, and he'd have us kids helping him out. So I was the coat room guy when I was, I don't know, 8th or 9th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, something like that, 6th grade, I don't know. It was for a number of years we did this. And I started promoting the coat room. I'd make up little poems to promote the coat room. And eventually, Phil would interview me at halftime, and I would do poems about the coat room and include plugs for the sponsors. I mean, I was just a natural from the. I remember, working in Amsterdam oil heat into a poem. I don't know. But I would learn who the sponsors for the game were, and I would work it in, and Phil loved it, and so. He told my father, he says, when that boy turns 16, you get him up to the radio station, he's got a job. And
you did?
I did. Yeah, eventually fired me, but a couple of times, actually.
But yeah, so he'd do the games, and Maynard Baker and Stan Burrs would referee them.
That's right.
And after the games, we'd go up the Burses.
Where else?
That's right.
Where else? And serve the...
serve the ones who went up. That was probably, for a lot of folks growing up in Amsterdam, it was the place where we learned how to conduct ourselves.
As gentlemen.
As gentlemen.
That's right.
Because you went up there, and you knew what he knew, and he knew what you knew, and by golly, you better behave.
That's right.
And it was a place that
we family place.
It was, and you learn how to do what you should do when you go out. You went out to enjoy your friends, have perhaps something to drink, but conduct yourself appropriately. He put up with no baloney up there, and it was great.
I can't conceive of anybody attempting baloney up there. I never saw it happen.
Never. John Armstrong, Bill Miner, myself, and John's sister, Anne and her friend, we all went over in a Volkswagen Beetle to Cape Cod in the summer. 5 of us in a Volkswagen Beetle. Okay? I drove. It's my Beetle. And the girls got a hotel room, and the 3 of us slept out in the parking lot in the Volkswagen. We did that for 3 days. And we had just enough money to get back to Amsterdam on the Mass Pike. And I was on literally E in fumes getting back. First place we went to we went to Burses. And I had worn a Burses softball shirt while I was over there. And I said, Stan, look at it. We just came back from Cape Cod.
We have no money.
We have no money, but every place I went, I wore your Stan Burses, your Burses house, Highland House shirt. Can we get something to drink? We advertised for you all over. So y'all gave us something to drink. We got home. I got my 54 cents and went down, put in 2 gallons of gas in the Volkswagen Beetle. But he and Irene were the kindest,
Yeah.
nicest people you could ever meet. And your parents knew where you were. They knew that's where you had gone, and that was okay because you were with Stan.
And every time one of the kids had a picture in the paper, it would be hanging on the board.
Absolutely, from a ball game or whatever. But the funny thing, though, is when he came to the Lions Den, to Bishop Scully, the referee, he was treated unmercifully by the crowd. We were probably the worst fan. We yelled and screamed, because you knew the guy, and for 3 years, Scully never lost a home game, and but we'd yell and scream at him. We were, I can't imagine what Father Barry and Father Gustus thought of us when we were cheering for Scully up there, our home team up there. But we'd ride Berza, and then afterwards we would just go up there, and he had a popcorn maker that used to shake the popcorn like a Jiffy popcorn.
Oh, yeah,
you put
yeah.
it on there and you'd shake the popcorn, and you'd have that, or you go sit in the other room where you had some tables, and Irene would come out, and and he always would greet you coming in. He'd always greet you when you left. It was a tremendous place, and I think a lot of the issues that we have about teenagers and drinking go back to the change of the drinking age from 18 to 21, because no longer are you able to go to a place to learn how to be responsible. You need to do everything outside of supervision, and therefore you degrade to your lowest aspirations. But there you had to attain your highest aspirations. And as you said,
theory.
Nobody ever came hard. And I believe, because I saw that change when I was teaching at the high school. When I was teaching at Amsterdam High, is when the drinking age changed. It changed twice. It went from 18 to 19, then to 21. And talking to the kids, as I did in my government class, about things, I could see how their perception changed when the drinking age changed, and the types of things they were talking about doing and what not to do, it changed because they were no longer able to be in a place that could be supervised by an adult. And I think that really hurt when they did that, because you have so many more issues with alcohol consumption of young people than you did then.
My secretary of 16 years, Dee Dee Bubniak, whose birthday was December the 15th. Oh, I can date this exactly now because she was born December 15th, 1964. All right, so she turned 18 in 1982.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
She turned 18 on December 15th, 1982. The drinking age went to 19 on January 1st. So for 2 weeks she was legal.
Yes.
And then for another whole year, just about, she was illegal.
Yeah.
Then December 15th, 1983, she turns 19 and is legal for another 2 weeks when it went to 21. And then she had to wait another 2 years. Now, how weird is that?
How unfortunate that she was born in '64.
Right. I mean, it almost couldn't have been any worse unless you'd been born on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 weeks of heavy drinking twice, and then they wait 2 years.
Yeah. But she
eventually became a great bartender, by the way. It's like
the Highland House was a great place. You could get sandwiches there if you wanted. Irene would go back and make something, though it was not her custom to make anything to drink there, anything to eat back in the kitchen. But it was it's a wonderful time. I've got tremendous memories of being up there and being around those two people. And
there used to be quite a number of what you would call family bars around town. Noted presidential historian David Petrusha grew up in one, in Lencheski's, which was at the corner of Reed and Church Street, that his uncle ran. There's a great picture on his webpage of him at the age of 10 pouring a beer from the tap. But you know, those were places people would could go and bring their families, and and it'd be okay. You know, the kids could play pool in the back room while you had a beer with your wife. You know.
Yeah, we played City League basketball. We used to play over some of the junior high, but we used to play over at the Armory because Scully used the gym up there. St. Mary's wasn't there anymore. And after a game, you know, I'd go with Mark Wesolowskis and Dave Van Wormer and Nimchek and Zawiza, and we'd stop someplace and have something to drink on our way home after the game and go home. And it was just a more casual and relaxing atmosphere than what the kids grow up in today. But I really think that change to taking it out of that kind of environment and putting it where it ends up today, because that's, you know, a rite of passage what kids do, and you can't legislate morality.
Do you think on the other side of it, do you think raising the drinking age raised the where they start to drink age? Because, you know, when the drinking age was 18, it didn't take much for a senior buying beer for a freshman.
No.
It's a little tougher when they're 21. They don't want to even look at a freshman.
Yeah. I think there was some. I think most of the folks that I knew growing up, you know, was, you know, 15, 16 maybe. You'd imbibe for the first time, but again, you know, the first time Stan ever asked me for my ID, I think I was 19. Okay, we'd been coming there for 2 or 3 years, you know. But it was funny. I said, Stan, can I see your ID? I said, yeah, okay. So, all right, you can have a drink. Up to then, he never asked, but he knew all the families. He knew all the moms and dads, and I think he felt he was a safe haven for people to come and be responsible. But the other thing in conjunction that has changed is the way drinking and driving has changed, and the onus that is placed upon it. Back then, though, for the most part, we walked to places that we went. We were not driving. You know, it didn't matter if you were 16, 17, or 18. You know, most kids didn't have a car. You made your way by foot throughout out the city. Whereas now, you know, kids turn 16 and all of a sudden they've got use of the parents' car. They have their own car. So you need to separate those two activities.
No, that's for sure.
You know, and that's changed. You know.
You know, and the days when the cop would drive you home are long gone.
Yeah,
long gone.
They'll drive you down to the station and call pops to come down and pick you up. But those are great times, and I kind of regret that my children weren't able to have that kind of learning environment to grow up in. I think probably wouldn't make any difference because I got good kids, but I just think that's something they missed out on, because I certainly wouldn't want to think that, geez, we had missed that, because it was.
I can't even remember now when they closed. I mean, I know I was there into the late 70s. I remember being there, but
it was there.
Probably wasn't much after that.
No, it was in the 80s, because we were still playing. I played for Skiba's softball team, and we were still playing against Burz's through the 80s.
Really?
Yeah, because Hap Hardig and Ray Fife were playing with Burz's. Jimmy Egan pitched for Burz's, and we were still playing against them in the 80s. I was still with, and then probably 80. My second year, probably 85 or 86 it may have gone, because we left Skiba's and Burz's players left Burz's, and we went down and played for the Lean-To. So I'm thinking probably around 85, 86-ish in there is when Burz's closed up. So it's been down, you know, 20.
Yeah, 20-some years.
25 years. But it's right around the mid-80s when they closed up. But they were open all through college. You know, I was grateful for. I remember sitting at the bar one night with Stan and Irene, and they were kind of worried because their daughter was going to be going to Alaska, because her husband, they just got married, and her husband's going to be working on the Alaskan pipeline.
No kidding.
And they were concerned that they weren't going to see her and everything, but they were happy because the salary he was going to make up there was going to be wonderful and be able to take care of their family. But they were just lamenting the fact that she was going to be so far away. You know, I'm thinking about, wow, the Alaskan pipeline. Well, what a marvelous feat of technology that was for its time, that they were able to build something to bring the oil from Prudhoe Bay down here and put it.
And they were planning that, at least when I was in college. I remember discussing it with my roommates when I was a sophomore.
Yeah.
You know, because one of them had a nefarious plan to get rich quick on the Alaska pipeline. Would have worked too.
But yeah, that was big to do back then, and it was going to put a dent in the amount of oil we were going to have to import from overseas. And I think that was at a time we were kind of looking out for ourselves and doing what was in our best interest, as opposed to some of the things we do now with regard to energy.
Alaska.
Yeah, and it was there was a show on that long ago, and they were talking about the Alaska pipeline and all the money these roughnecks made up there, and the guys were building the pipeline, driving a truck. You know, they'd work, I don't know, 4 weeks on and 2 weeks off or something. And they said, you know, in the 2 weeks off, they left all their money in Alaska and went back to work again to make it, because none of these guys were saving. They were going down to Anchorage and Juneau and blowing it all.
It's just like the Wild West.
Yeah, absolutely. That was
cattle drives over, you all get your money and it's gone, and now you're back on the horse.
Yeah, you know, and that might have been part of Stan and Irene's concern too. That might have, but I guess everything worked out for them up there. But it just, you know, and I've told a lot of people, without a doubt, we grew up at the best time to grow up in America. We absolutely did.
You know, I was watching yesterday afternoon on the military channel. They had that Leaving the Earth series.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was watching Gemini with Cy, and I'm just, you know, I hadn't seen a lot of that footage since it happened. I've seen, I guess, bits and pieces of the series, but really, they a really good film of, you know, guys like Ed White and.
You know, you're speaking of your buddy Dave Petruccia. He was on the other day. Today's Friday. I think I saw him Tuesday. The baseball channel had an hour special on the Black Sox, the White Sox scandal, and he was one of the commentators that was.
Well, he's one of the experts on it.
Yeah, and
he wrote the book.
He was on there. It was good. It's a little bit different. It wasn't the Ken Burns part of it, but they did some other things in there, and they really talked about the guys and how there was some belief that the World Series the previous year had been jobbed.
Not the one with the Red Sox.
Was that 1918?
Well, they let's see. They won in 17. Yeah.
18.
Or 18 rather.
Was it?
Yeah. The Black Sox was 19. Yeah. Yeah, they won in 18. Yeah.
And they were talking that, you know, betting on baseball is a lot more common. That it was a time in which the owners were making mucho bucks and the players were getting nothing. And they talked to bookies, and they talked to the bookies, the bookies, and so the guys who were actually involved, the disgruntled group that were involved with the White Sox, you know, really didn't feel as though they were. No, they justify what they did.
Right. Yeah,
we're sticking it to the owners. That's what we're sticking it to.
Yeah.
We're not sticking it to anybody else but the owner. You know, but it was really interesting. I enjoyed it. You know, I really. It's unfortunate that Shoeless Joe got caught up in all that because he.
But he had no remorse over it. He had none whatsoever. You know, it was so. There you go.
Yeah.
And in fact, he double crossed them because he held out for more money.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm not getting enough. So then he has a great game. You know, and then once it goes back for more.
Yeah, but that was interesting. I enjoyed watching that.
I forget how many years ago he did that. Quite a while, probably 10 years ago he did that. Back during the end of his baseball phase.
Well,
he did a talk on that down in New York last year, which I was going to videotape for him, but the New York Public Library would not allow me to bring the equipment in. So.
You really put a dent in their bottom line if you did that, Bob. You know?
It was that was based on his book on Arnold Rothstein, The Criminal Genius, his biography of Arnold Rothstein, the criminal genius who fixed the 1919 World Series.
You know, and I believe they had this on because this is coming up to voting season for the Hall of Fame, and the baseball MLB State Network has been having talks every night about the candidates who are coming on the ballot, particularly for the first time, with Bonds and McGuire coming up as first time nominees,
Sosa.
and Sosa. What should be done with these guys? Should they be allowed to
Clemens
be in the
is
Hall?
on this year, isn't he? Or is he?
I thought he was next year. You might be
Maybe.
right, but I thought he was coming up next year. So what's going to happen with these guys?
Well, we know what's going to happen. The precedent's already there. The precedent was made with McGuire before. That they're just not going to. Certainly not first time around.
No, well, in fact, I think.
But with Clemens, I think it's a little bit more difficult call. First of all, he was exonerated by the jury. The proof against him wasn't all that hot. On the other hand, Pettit changed his story, so I think you got to look at that too. But boy, you can't look at a record like he put up without before the steroid era without saying that's a Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and that was part of the
record.
argument Wednesday night with Bonds. He was probably a Hall of Fame player before.
Oh, absolutely,
this
absolutely.
Occurred. But does the beginning and the end there, are they conjoined or are they separate?
Whatever happened with his trial? Did they ever have his trial? Was he convicted
with
of
Balco?
anything? I don't think he was he?
I don't think
Because that was one of those everything was double hearsay case.
Yeah, but with him, they were doing an analysis of his last 4 years, where his results went way above any of his younger years. This is from age 37 to 39 or 40, and they were showing they took Babe Ruth's best 3 or 4 years and stacked them up. And look at Bonds is at this age when guys are falling apart are better than Ruth in his prime.
He was phenomenal in his last years. He hit the ball at will in his last. That's why he walked so many times. They just knew if it was over the plate, it was over the fence.
That's right. That's right. He hit it.
But it's not sheer power that does that. It's that I don't think the steroids gives you hand-eye coordination.
No, absolutely not.
And he was one of the best there ever was when it came to hand-eye coordination, right to the end.
And part of his hurdle to overcome is certainly his relationship with the press.
Oh yeah, they hated him.
Even when he was younger, they hated him. There was nothing just because
they couldn't wait to get him.
Yeah, and he was.
He
was certainly enough to give it to him.
If Ted Williams had the slightest hint of scandal, there was no way he was getting in.
Yeah.
Because they hated him.
But his record spoke for itself. He got in. So we'll see what happens with these guys.
Well, I know what's going to happen. But before we finish up our first hour, let's wish a couple of happy birthdays. Our contributing editor, city historian Robert Van Hasselen's birthday is today, December 21st.
Well,
he's
happy
a solstice
birthday,
baby.
Bob.
Yeah. And our old friend Vanessa Stark is celebrating her birthday today.
Vinny's little sister.
Vinny's big sister, actually.
That's right.
Vanessa's the oldest.
Yeah, you're right.
When she was about to be born, Jeff was managing Herc's Tavern for his uncles because they both had regular jobs, and he was the full-time guy, and then they'd come in at night and on weekends. So they had what was probably an illegal pool at Herc's Tavern. This is statute of limitations is run as to when Vanessa was going to be born. The dates and the times and all the little blocks like it was the football pool. So I go in one day, and Jeff says, "Come here," and he leans over the bar and he says, "Pick Friday, 11 o'clock." So what? says, pick Friday, 11 o'clock. It's a cesarean.
Oh, that's funny.
So actually, they canceled the pool. Yeah. So that's the story of Vanessa's birth, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, so we started a little late, had a little interruption in the middle, but it's I guess this is about an hour we've been running at this point. So the second hour, we got a lot of stuff to talk about: Christmas, Festivus, Advent, Rip Van Winkle, all kinds of
The
stuff.
Cranesville Rip Van Winkle?
We're going to talk about that all in the second hour of the show with no name, and that's it for this hour of the show with no name.